Good evening.
Hi, how are you? This is
Good.
John McCluskey.
Hi, Ms. Ricklesky. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Sorry I was a couple minutes late.
Oh, no, all good, all good.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just wait. Hi, Justin.
Hey, Amy.
Just Dave Paris, our zoning administrator, who's our normal host, he set it up so that it would start recording as soon as the first person joined. So we're trying it out so that he doesn't have to be in attendance every month, which would be nice for him. Although I do appreciate his input.
Yeah, he's a great asset. He's been very
Yes.
helpful.
Yes, definitely. So we're just waiting for our hard members to join us.
Great.
Oh,
Testing out the screen share here. Can everybody see my screen?
yes.
Yep.
Hi, Amy. It's Nigel.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Erin. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, excuse me.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. This is John McCluskey. I'm doing well. Ready
Yep,
to,
good. Glad to hear.
I'm ready to go get some warm weather. I'm trying to get out of town to get out of this cold. So if everything goes well, I'll be on a flight at 10 o'clock tonight to Florida. So
Oh,
There you
nice.
go. Okay, good for you. You're headed in the right direction.
I'm hoping.
Can
I'm
you
hoping.
take us with you?
I'm only allowed to carry on.
Uh-oh. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah, so it's
A toothbrush and a stove, right?
yeah. So this will be the first meeting. This is the first Zoom meeting I've had at the Philadelphia airport.
Oh,
that
you're at the
was
airport. Well, it's very quiet. Are you in a lounge or something?
I'm sitting in the parking garage.
Oh my gosh, well. I've done many meetings in my car.
Yeah, exactly. This COVID has created a whole new world of ways to do business. It really has.
It certainly has, yes, I know. We've had to get creative and kind of silly too, I know.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's great.
Where in Florida?
Fort Myers Beach.
Oh, okay.
So I fly into Fort Myers, and then it takes about maybe a half hour to get out in the island. Yeah, I haven't. I actually took my boys to the airport on Sunday, and they flew down to spend the week down there. And then, I was like, they're calling for 20 inches of like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah.
I'm getting out of town. I was just like, the heck with it. I'm done. I'm out. So I was like, you know what? I can do, anything I need to do up here, I can pretty much do down there on Zoom. So I figure, let's just get out of here, get in warm weather. By the time I come home, hopefully somebody can come clean up my house and we'll figure it out.
There you go.
Yeah. It's too,
This is unusual.
I'm not ready
though.
for
You know,
snow.
this is
I'm just
snow.
not ready.
Yeah. So I think
All right.
yep, I see Nigel, just waiting for Rick.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nigel's here, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Amy, should I give the screen share back over to you?
Yeah, if you want to do that to start, that would be fine, sure.
There you go.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We're just waiting for one more board member.
Great.
Amy, is this your last meeting of the year?
It is, yes.
Oh, good.
And I have 2 more days of work and then I am out of the office for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And how many, I should know this probably, but how many meetings do you have like a month? Is it
Just once a month. And then we have
once
our
a month? Okay.
Yeah, the executive committee.
Oh, that's right.
The pre-meeting is the week before,
Yep.
but yeah, just 1 meeting a month.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. It's been an interesting year.
Yes, it has been. It's been many, many months since we've been able to meet in person, which I prefer, but
Sure.
it is what it is.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
Well,
we
you just-
started. Did we skip March, Amy? Did we skip March and
Yeah.
then start in April?
Our last meeting together was in February, and then March,
Right.
the day of the meeting, they closed City Hall. And then we had a
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I only
I
had
don't
one
think we
in-person
did.
meeting.
Oh, yeah, you haven't, Nigel. That's right.
I had one. I had one.
Oh, just one. Okay. Oh, you did February then, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Besides council, though, we were the trailblazers because the planning commission and the zoning hearing board all waited a couple months. So we carried on.
We did. We did. I'm not sure why, but we did, right?
Yeah.
What were we thinking?
Are we still waiting for Rick?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We work for a quorum.
Do you have his cell, Amy? He's usually
Yeah,
like right on time.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Can you text him?
Do you want to text him, you mean? Did you say?
Could you text him, or I can? I don't have his cell handy though.
Yeah. He's gonna put
Okay.
me on. Oh.
Hey, John, what time is your flight? Is it tonight or tomorrow? Did you say?
My flight is at it's 9:50 this evening.
9:50.
So I'm-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we mean, if we go 3 hours
We
here,
can-
I'll still make it if as long as we don't go more than 3 hours.
Oh, gosh, no, we will not. You have my guarantee we will not go 3 hours. But I appreciate your willingness perhaps to do so. That sounded very genuine.
We get to the
No,
we
it's
get to the 2 hour mark. I'm gonna be you'll see me put the earbuds in. We'll be walking.
Yeah. Talking and walking, yep.
Yep. Yep. We got somebody coming in.
No, that was my phone, just binging, sorry. Yeah. I apologize for the delay. We're usually, quite prompt, so I'm not sure what's keeping our last board member.
Amy, has Rick seen any of this so far?
Yeah, he's been sent everything. He just hasn't had the discussion part of it as the executive committee, but he's seen the notes.
Okay. I didn't know.
every-
I didn't know if he was on the. I didn't think he was on the exec, but okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, just Aaron and Nigel are.
Yep,
We're on. Oh, there he is.
I am, yeah. I couldn't find my invitation.
Oh,
Yeah, you sent me 5,000 emails. I couldn't find my invitation. So
yes.
that's
Yeah,
where I
the
was.
The 401 Penn Street, I think, was like 5 emails in itself. So
I was just about ready to send you a picture saying, why don't you send it to me again? Because I can't find it. I was looking in my deletes and everything. I couldn't find it anywhere.
and I was looking for your phone number, and I thought I had it right at hand, but I did not.
All of a sudden there it was. It was like, oh, okay, great.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think we have everybody. Okay. All right, so the meeting is being recorded. I will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the December 2020 meeting of the City of Reading's Historical Architectural Review Board. During the COVID-19 emergency declaration, the Historical Architectural Review Board, also known as the HARB, will hold its meetings using a virtual meeting platform due to the fact that the public is prohibited from attending the regular HARB meetings in person. Public comment for the HARB meeting was made available through email directed to Amy Johnson up to 5 p.m. today, December 15th. Comments received will be read into the record at this meeting. Ms. Johnson, were any public comments submitted? And if so, would you please read them into the inclusion to the record?
There were no comments submitted.
Okay, thank you. A full recording of tonight's meeting will be placed on the city's website after adjournment of the meeting. So thank you for your attendance this evening. Chapter 295 of the City of Reading's Codified Ordinances requires that the HARB be guided by the United States Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings, Chapter 180, Construction Codes, and by any policies and/or guidelines hereafter adopted by the board or the City of Reading. While meetings of the HARB are generally informal, Robert's Rules of Order are used to structure the proceedings and maintain decorum. All attendees are asked to mute their microphone if they're not actively participating in the discussion, so as to reduce any background noise. Again, the audio portion of these proceedings will be recorded for record-keeping purposes. When the applicant hears the name of his or her property called by the chair, they should identify themselves and wait for the preservation officer to present the summary of the application proposal. The chair will recognize the applicant when the time is appropriate for him or her to present any supporting information to the board. Okay, so as far as I know, no meeting minutes were submitted for approval. Is that correct, Ms. Johnson?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll wait to the next meeting for those. Are there any conflicts of interest for tonight's agenda among the board members? No, okay. All right, well, then we will go ahead and begin with 401 Penn Street. I know, Mr. McCloskey, I know you have a number of folks here from Alvernia. Why don't we go ahead and allow Ms. Johnson to read the property summary, and then you can introduce you and your group. And you have 3 hours until your flight leaves. Again, it won't take that long, but you're really welcome to take what time it needs to review the property. And thankfully, we're relatively familiar with it from having done a preliminary review, although I know there have been some things that have changed, since that time. But I think we have a pretty good understanding of it. So, Ms. Johnson, if you want to start, and then I will do my very best to I'll share my screen and do my very best to keep attachments open. If we want to do it that way, unless the Alvernia team would like to share screen and show graphics and plans that way. It's really up to you guys.
Okay, so this is 401 Penn Street, and this 5-story building was built in 1980 and features a brick facade with linear window bays, decorative vertical brick piers, brick corbelling detail at the 5th floor roof line, and an arcade with recessed commercial storefronts at the 1st floor level at the southern facade. The structure received a site quality rating of 80 and is a contributing building in the Callow Hill Historic District. And tonight we are reviewing the proposal for the construction of a canopy and decorative metal screen addition at the southeast corner of the building, which requires the removal of an existing maple tree, shrubs, benches, monument sign, and sculpture at the southeast corner of the building. The relocation of 2 and the removal of 1 first-floor storefront door assemblies to include the patching of existing finishes at the southern and western facades, painting of the ground floor brick knee and spandrel wall areas at the first floor storefronts at the southern and western facades, painting of the soffit within the arcade walkway at the southern facade, and the installation of metal louvered vents at the 4th and 5th floors at the northern facade. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are number 2, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Number 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. Number 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. And number 10, new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the Alvernia team, you're welcome to begin again, like however you'd like to structure the meeting. If you want to give a broad overview, I know Ms. Johnson did a pretty good job of that, but you're welcome to start with a broad overview, and then we can break down the different portions of the application and discuss each one as we walk through that. If you'd like to do it that way.
Well, thank you. And Justin Walton from Warfel Construction is going to kind of guide us through this conversation if that's possible. So Justin, I think you probably are going to want to do a screen share. Would that be correct?
Yes, sir. I'm on it.
Okay, terrific.
Great, we see it.
We are there. All right, great. So Amy did a really nice job of introducing the general sort of scope and character of the project. In front of you, we have a rendering of the existing building, kind of showing a few of the pieces, some of the work that we're doing here on the base of the building with renovation and sort of reconfiguration of the storefront to help sync with some of the interior program we have going on behind that. The new entry sequence here that we're trying to create, that will help draw people from the sidewalk space, both to the east and to the west into what is the front door. I think this building probably tried to hide its front door at some point or another because, only workers who were at CNA wanted to be there, but now we'd like to be a bit more part of the community, I think, at this point. And so approaching the street with the new entry and screening for some of the mechanical inner workings back here, as well as, a little more impact on the front and opportunities for future signage. It's sort of what we're attempting to create here. We're also carrying on a few small renovations to items around the perimeter of the building that you'll see in, that you've probably observed in some of our elevations.
Mhm.
These are again, you can see that the major portion of the project is here, right at this front corner on the southeast of the building, with the new screening, opportunities for signage at the steel structure for the canopy and the canopy itself, exhibiting some of the storefront updates that we're making here, where we're taking out a door at 2 locations, and then filling those in with storefront that's matched to the adjacent larger windows next to it, and then taking those doors and moving further down the facade and filling in. Apologies, this is an area where we are filling in a door that the Community First Foundation actually filled in at some point with a pane of glass, because they have a conference room back here. And we're going to take that door from one of these locations and restore this to an operating door there, and the same around the corner. We're proposing, and I'll cover this generally, and I think Carson will help us fill in some of the details of the why and the how we're executing these in a little bit. But we're looking at updating the facade a little bit to help bring, differentiate between the mass of the building, which is the sort of like the official front, which is the front here, and the piers that are coming down, with the commercial and sort of more publicly engaged facade, which is pushed back off of these piers and further underneath. This is all the painting that we're suggesting in here that's helping differentiate between these two faces, is also helping us with moments like these, where we're going to do everything we can to find a brick that will nearly match the existing oversized engineer modular bricks that are there. But the chances are there's going to be a tint different at the very least, even if we get one that's of the exact same brick, just because they won't be of the same run. And so to help manage that potential color transition, that's where we started on the conversation of painting some of these knee walls and head conditions underneath further back in off the facade to help create a more uniform look to these storefronts panels that are part of the building. And then additionally, we have a few small things that we're doing around the building, just that are reflections of what's going on inside. On the 4th Street facade, so this is down here, we're at the corner of 4th and Penn. Here, this is that corner we just wrapped around the facade here, and this is another door that we're restoring back to functionality again from where it was originally. And then there's there were 2 private entry doors right here, and we're hoping to go ahead and fill this one in. So right now, these 2 locations look the same, and we are looking to restore them to a condition that might look something like that. Right, so we're taking that same moment, pulling it across, and continuing the ribbon window through there, and then just leaving this.
Okay.
Moving back to the elevations here. Hope that the lag isn't too bad on the screen.
No, it's not.
Give you seizures if it starts switching too much.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that. Covering on a broad scale. Sorry, I'll return back to the overall elevations. This was really getting into the weeds on these diagrams. All right, here we are again. So now we're on, this is the Court Street or the 4th Street elevation, and then we have the pedestrian alley here, right? And this is the the view that you can't get from across the street because you're in the alley, but you can see the side elevation of the canopy, which sort of helps guide you to the front doors that are right here. The side elevation of the steel structure that's holding up our screening, and the profile of the canopy itself. The painting strategy that we were suggesting in the front does wrap around until it comes to the main entry space here. And just to maintain some consistency as we wrap the corner. And then on the Court Street elevation, doing very, very little. Really, we're just talking about, some ventilation, some brick vents flush with the facade that are up here at the very highest levels of the building. And these are generally 6 by 6, 8 by 8, and 8 by 16 sort of modules that would be set within the plane of the brick. So that's kind of a overview of the project. Not sure if anybody wants to know or hear or ask questions more about what's going on inside the building. Carson and I can certainly answer some questions on that. But I thought we could, Amy was kind enough to send some comments back on things that were maybe not as clear within the overall submission, or that could require some additional dialogue. So I thought I would just might move into that. But before I do, does anybody have any questions on the overalls?
I do. You had talked about the windows on the 4th Street side where the nonprofit is. Are they going to, it looked like a green panel.
Oh, I apologize. It is a rough PDF markup, and Carson is going to, at this point, look at me and go, "Why did you do that?" Because architects know better than that. I apologize. I had my contractor hat on right there. Isn't that simple? No, it's basically just reflecting the color of what was there when I did that. Right, when I put that in as if the blinds were coming across, but that would be a window similar to what's next to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would
not
be a window. Okay.
Yep, we would use a bronze, anodized bronze storefront, just like what's here, same sill detail with the flashing, same, neat, sort of the slanted brick soldier course there, and then the infill on the same bond pattern on the infill there.
And is your paint scheme, is your proposal to paint, is that wrapping around to that knee wall, or are you only proposing painting the first floor on the 10th Street elevation?
That's a great question. So we don't really, because the facade here is not recessed back in like it is in the other locations, we felt like it wasn't appropriate to do that same detail here.
Okay.
We were really,
all right, thank you for that.
Absolutely, yeah. The painting is as much about healing the joints there as it is about also differentiating the type of space from the main street to the commercial fronts.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
We saw some strong precedent for that in the existing conditions.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think that, if we could, I think what I usually like to do is that because this project has such like a broad scope, I usually like to start at like maybe the street level, and maybe we can just chunk off each section and each proposal of change or alteration on the building. And unless there was some more information you want to go through broadly, I wouldn't mind, starting specifically, I think at the area where you're proposing the new canopy, not necessarily the new canopy, but just the removal of some of the, like there's a monument sign there, there's some artwork. I think we wanted to talk through what changes would be, what you're proposing for that space. And then we can work into the canopy, into the storefront, and then our way up the building.
Great, that sounds good.
Okay, all right.
So I'll start, I'll go back to the perspective image here so we have a, orienting image, and hopefully it'll
Sure.
load here
Thank
for me.
you.
There we go. So
Yep.
if I'm understanding correctly, we're going to talk about the existing condition here and sort of how we're getting from that to the proposed condition.
Right. And then what you're addressing, because it's visible in that walkway that is blocked by the building, there to the east. And I know there's some artwork there, some like sculpture. We just wanted to make sure we understood. I don't think we're really as concerned about trees and things like that. They don't generally come under our purview, but anything that's kind of permanently fixed, a hardscape, I think we wanted to just make sure we were clear on what the proposal was. And if
Sure.
the board had any questions about that in particular.
Okay. So we'll start at this corner.
And I did like those graphics where you have the crime scene kind of cut out, which is nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
here we are, the existing conditions. We have the
Mhm,
existing
yep.
maple tree monument sign. Zooming in a little bit, the seat walls and benches, the sculpture here, which I think it looks like two panda bears maybe playing with each other, or polar bears.
I'm not
And
sure what it is.
Yeah, two animals playing with each other somehow.
Okay.
It's fun. And so there's a few trees here. So we're really, transitioning from that to a diagram we did to help, and, of the same image, you can see kind of a rough outline of the canopy there. And yes, we are, everything that's in this outline is intended to be part of what's removed. You can see right now I'm leaving out this tree and the hard, the base surrounding that. So it would just be the planting bed that leads up to that. So that's around the corner, and this would not be sort of interfering.
Okay.
We would obviously, we would look to the, others that help us understand where they would want to put that, but obviously we would pick this up and place it wherever, wherever it needs to be. Set it aside and preserve it until, a better location is sort of communally agreed upon. In the meantime, all of this would be removed, make way for the structure, for the canopy, which lands kind of right here where this tree is coming down effectively. There's a second column that's sort of right here. Paving would be removed only to the extent it's needed for structure. And then when we restore the paving, we would be looking we would be selecting a brick effectively to match the existing condition here, stitch all this back together into a single plane, and finish it out as if, this brick and this brick were kind of always tied together. And that would be ultimately the intent, is to make it look as one.
Okay, great. Okay, well then, thank you for that. Let me ask the board. So does the board have any questions about what the applicant is proposing removal in this area right here? And then Amy, if I could also just ask you what obligation we have for that sculpture. I do like the suggestion of not necessarily determining its precise location in tonight's meeting. That's certainly something that we could revisit at a different time, because I don't think that's necessarily critical to this project and critical for what the Alvernia team needs to move this forward. But Amy, if you can answer that question, then I'll open up to the board any questions they have about any of the work proposed in this area.
Sure. First, the sculpture is called Playing Bears, and it was created in 1970 by a George Papashvili. I'm probably murdering his name, and who designed the other animal sculptures. It's an animal theme. There's 3 of them throughout that space. In my research, I found an old fine arts board publication noting where all the public art was in Reading, I think as of the 1980s. It's an older publication. And it states that the CNA Corporation actually contributed those sculptures and to themselves in that space, because it was owned by CNA, of course. So they did not go to the redevelopment authority and the fine arts program. They did it on their own. But of course, I think it would be in the best interest of the city and the and Alvernia University to work together to determine where it should be relocated to. But as of right now, I don't know what the process for that would be.
Okay, okay. But at the very least, our motion could specify that we preserve that sculpture and then determine its location at a future time, potentially.
That would be
Once we
perfect.
kind of understand. Okay, all right, good. Okay, all right, excellent. Okay, so Rick or Nigel, do you have any questions or exceptions to the proposal as shown here relative to the removal of the tree, the monument sign, really the removal of all of that, and then just infilling with the matching brick pavers?
I don't know.
I don't know, not really.
Okay, all right, super. Okay, all right, so that's great. Okay, why don't we, and Amy, if I'm moving too fast or if I've overlooked something, just let me know, but hopefully we can, that's, okay, good, excellent. Well, then I think what we'd like to do now is move on to the canopy, the design of the canopy, the materials on the canopy, and then we can also just roll right into that large screen that's installed to cover the mechanicals. So if you, the Alvernia team wants to just walk us through the design on that. Thank you, by the way, yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks for kind of blowing out the detail on that, helping us see profiles on some of those, like the posts and some of the structure that's holding up that screening, and then also the materiality on the face of the canopy. So I appreciate it. It's kind of like diagram for dummies, which is perfect for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Carson, would you like to lead them through a little bit of the thinking on the entry canopy and the screening?
Sure. So my name's Carson Parr. I'm with RLPS Architects, the design firm working with Werfel on this project and with Alvernia. The thought here with the new entry is, as Justin said, the entry's kind of hidden down the courtyard. So trying to get a front face to help engage the community and provide a protected covered walkway back to that entrance. This is kind of sitting outboard of the existing footprint. It's a steel structure that is mostly exposed with some aluminum panels that help to create cover as you walk back into that courtyard. On the underside of the walkway, it would be a red panel tying back into Alvernia's colors and would allow for some lighting. So as this building is operational in times such as now when it's dark out at 6 o'clock, there's some added safety and security by being able to illuminate the entry sequence there. The screen is a perforated metal screen, again tying into Alvernia's colors that engages the existing building but respects the architecture, does not interfere with the existing cornice, ties into the existing structure in a way that doesn't affect the corbels of the columns, but works to screen the mechanical louvers from that front facade and help hide those, but still the perforation will provide some transparency and will allow for the louvers to still effectively work with air movement.
Sure. Okay, great. Okay. Oh, go ahead, keep going. Yeah, I don't want to, if there was a little bit more you had to explain, then I'll open it up to the board for questions.
I think for that entry piece, I don't know that there's much more commentary unless there's specific questions.
I think I did want to speak to one question that I did know was hanging out there from Amy's comments, is that this piece right here, so this was, there is, at one point had some lettering on it. In the drawings, you can see it has some lettering on it, but I did want to clarify that the intent of this piece is really to represent the potential of a future sign right there that might have some lettering on it, either building identification, numbering,
Mhm.
something like that. But at this point, it's
Sure.
really just representative.
Okay, all right. So in this phase of construction, then, would you install that, or you would install that when you come back for a sign review?
We would come back for a sign review, and this or
Okay.
something like that in this area would be
Okay,
part of that. In the meantime, we would just have the structure coming up to support
got it.
the larger
Okay.
screen. Mhm.
Okay, very good. Okay. Could you scroll down just a little bit for us to see the colors and the materials and just the profile on some of that, what's holding up the screen? Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. I know I had some questions, but I want to open it up to Nigel and to Rick to see what questions you had about the design, and if you are in agreement that its scale and massing and differentiation is is in the spirit of our Secretary of Interior standards. Through the review that the executive committee had, their recommendation was such that it is. But I'd like to hear from Rick and Nigel if you have a different opinion and the reasons why, and then anything related to the materials, because we have more detail here than we did at the executive committee meeting. Or if you have any exceptions to what's proposed, rather than asking if you agree with everything.
Can we look at the picture again that has the, it's more the realistic picture with the beams? Please.
The larger one?
Yeah, it's not a graphic, it's the picture with, yes, that right there. So there's the beam in the front, correct? And then there's also that one that runs along the back closer to the door, correct? I can
Right here.
barely see it, like, yeah, right there, yep.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it ties into the facade just behind the edge of that column right there.
Those beams should be painted, then I take it?
Yes, that's the intent, and the color that we were suggesting to the board and have been using to date is this kind of deep gray.
Mm-hmm.
More like brown to me, actually, but.
Yeah,
Brownish gray.
yeah.
Yeah.
The intent there is that I think, Carson, correct me if I'm wrong, but the intent was to try to do our best as we could to tie into the sort of reds and browns of the bronze, basically, right?
The existing storefront is a bronze that kind of has that, it's a warm gray, which is the intent to match that.
Okay.
How is the signage going up covering the louvers? How is that getting mounted into the building?
There's, we're utilizing the existing steel structure of the building, and to do that, we need to attach back into the steel through the brick. So there's a couple areas where we have to remove some bricks to get an attachment, but it is retaining the corbelling and the detail of the columns in doing that. Basically right in the middle is where the steel is located, so we can pull out steel to create that attachment without impacting the actual pilasters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on it, because on one side of it, I understand why you'd want to cover up those mechanical louvers. I can understand that, but the other part of it is it does kind of take away from the original architectural design of the building, because you're kind of, the way that it was supposed to wash out as it's going back towards into the alleyway there, or the walkway, that was all part of the intent. And as much as I can see that you're save, not damaging the corbelling or anything like that. It's kind of like a little on my end of it. It's kind of like you're hiding it at the top there a little bit, going just maybe a little too high, maybe, I guess. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but
It is a perforated metal, so it's not, and I think this graphic does a decent job of showing that little bit of transparency, but there will be light that
Mhm.
is able to come through it. At one point, we talked about more of a solid panel,
Mhm.
and as a reaction to trying to lighten that corner as you approach down the street, we went to a perforated panel that would allow for that kind of transparency and the respect of the entry into the courtyard to kind of shine through.
okay.
Yeah, and I think the original proposal was you were using that material to return back as well. Well, that was really like you were enclosing that area. Is that correct? Wasn't that the original proposal?
Yes, correct.
So it was
And we went to
really-
more
okay.
just a front facing screen.
Right, okay. Okay,
Is that
very
smaller
good. All
now
right.
compared to what was we originally looked at as the original rendition? Is that smaller than what we saw before? Or?
Yes. Yeah, we also reduced the height to respect the corbelling across the top of the building,
Mhm.
and kind of pinched it in relation to the width and how that, I think we put it off of the column on the inside to allow that column to show. So there's
It does look different. You wouldn't happen to have the first picture from what we saw a couple months ago, Andy, that you could show it to us so we can see the differencing. I mean, I can see some differences in what you put out here, but for my mind, I mean, I'm kind of going by memory what I saw from before. So,
Yeah, I'll pull that up here while we're talking through.
Okay.
a little bit
I
more,
know, sounds good.
it gives a little bit more of a visual as to what you're talking about, and and then understanding it too as well. So.
Okay, well, while you're looking for that, I had a question about the material that's proposed to face the canopy. And I have no issue with the material. I was just kind of wondering like how, what size panels will that be faced in? I noticed that with the technical information that you provided, it comes in many, many different sizes, but I was curious how pieced or how many seams would be visible. Are you trying to get as large a piece? Or you want like a grid pattern? I was kind of curious how that would play out.
Sure. Because these are technical drawings, the pattern that's on there makes it look like there's a lot of seams. That's not the intent.
Right.
The intent
I
is
didn't
for
think so. I think
a
it's
larger
differentiated.
format pattern that
Okay.
reduces the number of seams, and when it's applied to that that diagonal, it works well with that whole shape.
Okay. Okay, I thought so. It looked like it came in lots of different sizes and configurations, and I was curious what that detail would look like since we see those seams. How wide are the seams, or is that also a variable between the panels, or is that a fixed seam width?
That
Because that kind of shows a lot of reveal there.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a zoomed in image.
Yeah, it's very tight.
Okay.
I think it's about
Okay.
3/4 of an inch,
Okay.
and that's fairly standard.
Okay.
You can get a sense. These are about an inch deep. This is slightly shy of that. There's the
Okay.
clip system that holds it all together.
Sure. Okay.
Mhm.
And that has like does it all come in like a high gloss or a matte, or is it just one finish, even though you can change color?
There's a variety of finishes. The intent would be for that grayish color, not a high gloss, not completely flat either. Somewhere, I think that
Somewhere in between.
shell, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Still searching for the previous.
Yeah, surprisingly. You caught me off guard.
I have a,
I feel bad. I'm like, I should know where this is.
I have it right in front of me if you want to show me again.
One too many.
Imagine how I was feeling when I was trying to find the Zoom application.
There we are.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, excellent. Yeah, that is quite different.
Yes.
Yeah, we were coming out much further. We were wrapping around the front. You know, I think Carson and his team spent a lot of time trying to get the building to be more as it actually is. So, you know, acknowledging some of the corbelling at the top, acknowledging some of the real scale, the details. You know, this was something that we did very, very early on as a schematic to try to get a sense of what it might feel like, but then very quickly sort of moved towards, you know, the drawing we were just looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it looked a little different, like I said, but it was just nice to have a visual to see what differences were made.
Yeah, that was a good idea. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so does the board have any other questions about the design, the materials, the colors that are proposed for that, the canopy structure and what's supporting it in that area? Knowing signage notwithstanding, we'll discuss that another time.
I don't.
Well, one dumb
Okay.
question was the picture you showed me from the original one. You actually showed a rendition of someone walking over top of the College of Business. You see in here, is that going to be like non-accessible to the public, or is that going to be just for?
At this time, it's not accessible. It's being designed that there's a potential for future development, just from
Okay.
the structural
Mhm.
loading. But at this time, it's not going to be accessible.
Okay. But at this point, if that would be the case, then you would have to fill in the corner underneath there to make that accessible, if that would be the case.
We would not. The way that it's designed is it would just be a smaller kind of
Oh,
porch element that would just be as
Mhm.
shown. So
okay.
Yeah, and until we develop the second floor, which is where it would be accessed from, it's just sort of waiting to be used.
Any idea of illumination at evening? What it's going to look like at evening time?
Let me get to the reflected ceiling plan.
Am I stepping too far ahead of the vision here?
now
That's good. Good.
from the
That-
underneath, we would provide illumination to make sure that it's safe for college students and any community members that would be walking back there when it's dark out. And we're proposing linear lights to kind of create that draw back to the main entry.
So you can see, is this evident enough for everybody, like right through here, these dashes in the plan?
Yep. And I assume that's like a LED lighting of some type. Are the fixtures are recessed into the ceiling?
Correct.
Okay. Rick and Nigel, do you have any questions or exceptions to that lighting proposal?
Not really.
No. Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I think we've addressed the canopy design, the large mesh screening. And what I'd like to do maybe is just discuss the storefront, the ground floor painting last. Maybe we can just go ahead and move up to I think the element that's at the highest, I think, is the venting on the Court Street side on the 4th and 5th floor.
Right.
Okay, if we could just discuss that quickly, then we can go back to the proposal on the changes to the first floor storefront. elevation.
Excellent. So
Okay.
reorienting ourselves. So this is here's the loading dock and the pedestrian alley and 4th Street over here. And we're standing on Court Street, so to speak, and looking up 4th and 5th floors. I'm going to flip to this diagram right here where we kind of showed you some of the materials we were thinking about using and kind of rendered what they might look like on the facade. So this is actual spacing, from the elevations where these might occur. We've kept them out of the bands and out of the corbelling. And wherever absolutely possible, we've reflected them, uniformly about the piers, that they're not, looking odd. This is these would be an 8x8 and 8x16. This is like a head flashing effectively that would fit within the basically underneath the brick, but then everything else would be flush, and these would be painted. I think we would have to work with you all on some sampling to confirm a precise color that we all felt best about, since there is some variation within the brick. But
Sure.
we would work to identify a color that was satisfactory to the board, that would blend as best as possible with the facade across the 4th and 5th floors. So these are all flush type vents there. If anybody wants a different view of this, we have some existing photography we can slip to as well.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Rick or Nigel, do you have any questions or exceptions to that proposal? I know the executive committee have noted like they're relatively small in scale. They're on the 4th and 5th floor, and they'll be painted. They're flush, and they'll be painted to match the exterior as much as possible.
I don't have any exceptions.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, all right, excellent. Okay, okay, so I think then the last but not least, and probably most one that may warrant the most discussion is the painting of the storefront, and then the infilling of the areas that that you're changing a door back to a window. So I think we want to talk through, because I think we're still a little undecided about how to approach that. So I just wanted to see if we could have a discussion about that. If you want to take a moment to bring up those photos or those plans.
Yep. So starting with the alterations, does anybody have questions about the kind of the scope of the alterations? On the front, we have some existing photos that Amy was kind enough to sort of assemble that walk down the facade here. We could look at those. I did clip one out that I feel like does give us a good sense of what each of these, where are each one of these doors, right? They get very abstract in the 2D flattened line drawings, but you can see here are the 2 doors, one right here behind that Ford truck, and another one right here. These are going into rooms right now that in the future we hope to not have street access from, but this one we are retaining. So these 2 doors would be filled in to match the same sort of glazing pattern that is adjacent to them either side. So what is now a transom with a double door beneath, the double doors would be removed, reallocated to what was a double door of a similar size and scale, you can see, but is now an infill panel. So we would take those panels and put them here. And then we would, instead of doing the infill like they did, we would intend to continue the knee wall across and then create a window condition above that matches the windows next to it. And so those are the modifications there. Does that all make sense to everybody? I'm just recapping on that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. Yeah.
We do have, if we want to look into details for these, we can. We have those available, but I'll follow your lead on that. In the meantime, I suppose it seems like everybody would like to get down to business on the colors. and that.
Yes, yes, we did.
Yeah, so we'll just go straight there. I just wanted, as a precursor, I thought I'd reorient us there.
Yeah, thank you.
We did include an elevation, kind of a mock-up elevation of what we feel like the painted knee wall and head wall would look like in the overall, and I'm gonna flip to that, and then I'll let Carson kind of walk through the particulars of, why we decided to go this route and what we think it's benefiting the project.
Okay.
So one thing, as you look at that elevation where the 4 squares were, what's actually happening inside is we have about 6 different levels, because the sidewalk is falling away from the entry. So from the east side of the building to the west side, there's about a 3 to 4 foot difference. To make the space inside usable, we're adjusting usable and accessible, getting rid of stairs. We're lifting the floor in certain areas to create larger tenant spaces. Because we're lifting the floors in those areas, we have to conceal that structure that's underneath there, which is why we're proposing to use brick to infill that sill condition. To conceal the structure that's actually being used to lift that level and make it accessible inside. So yeah, this is a good graphic. You can see the difference as you step down.
Yeah. I hadn't noticed that. I hadn't noticed before the difference, the height on that it starts higher, kind of on the east side.
Right.
Like that knee roll sits higher. Okay, I hadn't noticed that. Okay.
And this red line is actually this is actually the main building floor elevation right here.
Yeah. So that's level. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as we look at the optimal locations to locate those doors to address the tenant spaces and how we fill in the panels, the thought with the toothing of the brick and trying to create a cohesive commercial storefront underneath the arcade. And as Justin pointed out before, we're not proposing painting outside anywhere from the arcade. It's just underneath the arcade. Taking those panels and looking at those as inset panels that represent a commercial environment, which is open and accessible to the community, which there's kind of neighboring precedents of having that painted brick to indicate a commercial storefront. Yeah, I think all around the building on the first level, there is, and I know there's some different communities, different streets, different districts, but just looking around at all the neighbors, trying to set that first level, that commercial level, apart from the rest of the building, and it's all within the arcade area, which is why we're proposing to paint that. But then we did show the graphic where we're not just going in and painting everything. We're looking at those truly as inset panels for the commercial storefronts and allowing the columns to remain as exposed brick. So kind of using that similar to the design aesthetic for the screening, and that same thought process of respecting the structure of what the historical elements are, but truly looking at these infill panels and trying to get those as consistent as possible.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So, Amy, could you just really quickly just kind of give some precedence for painting brick and why we generally do not or would not approve that?
Typically, the board has never approved the painting of exterior masonry unless it had been painted previously. or had been proven to be a soft brick, which would require the painting because of the deterioration or potential deterioration. But for buildings with a hard glazed, front facing brick facade, the board does not approve the painting or covering of it in any manner, because we have had applicants want to, put or install aluminum siding or vinyl siding or some sort of
Right.
siding over the brick as well. But it essentially you are covering, or you would be covering the original material or historic material, which is not recommended by the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Right, yeah. And the standards don't differentiate historic, when I say historic, I mean old buildings from modern buildings in
Right.
the respect of covering or painting brick.
Correct, yes, they don't
Okay.
differentiate. I can find it. If you give me a second.
Sure. Yep.
It says, not recommended, applying paint or other coatings such as stucco to masonry that has been historically unpainted or uncoated to create a new appearance.
Okay.
And of course,
And I think, go ahead.
the intention is, of course, more, older historic buildings, but it does have to apply to any building falling within a historic district boundary.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in terms of, looking at the context of the neighborhood, there's certainly a precedence for that first floor differentiation from, from the rest of the building. And I think that the objective is wonderful in terms of, just really trying to create a different sense for that space. In terms of like color and what it's accomplishing, it does appear to be compatible, but the board is just conflicted with wanting to allow you to kind of see that vision through, but really, quite frankly, not really having the ability to to really violate or in some ways just defy the standards and the precedents that we've set. So that's where we're having some some difficulty. I know we've bantered around a couple of ideas, but really I think we'd be talking about like covering what's there, and that's really in the same sort of sense, like painting it. So introducing another material may not necessarily work. There was some discussion about potentially just painting the knee wall because of the difficulty that there would be in matching, infilling brick and mortar in a way that would be seamless. We know that it's not seamless, even with the same brick. It's certainly dirty, it's aged, it's it's all those things, compared to a new material or a new brick. And so I think that's kind of some of the difficulty. So Nigel or Rick, did you have any thoughts different from what I just communicated, or any other ideas? I will say to Alvernia, in spite of what the board may move, you always have the ability to to appeal our decision if there's a portion of the application that is denied, or whatever, or just we're not giving you per se what what you're proposing. I wanted to make sure that you were clear about that, but I would like to try to find some compromise that may allow you to accomplish what you need to, and still in some way, if possible, satisfy what the board's objective would be to really not paint surfaces, or at the very least minimize the number or the amount of surfaces that are being painted, if the board would be agreeable to that.
Yeah, I agree with Aaron. Our hands are kind of tied when it comes to things like this, because what we're allowed to approve and what we're not.
Right.
So therefore, if we could come up with some other material, like Aaron suggested, or some other compromise to what you need to have done here, we'd be willing to do
Yeah.
that.
And it
Aaron,
doesn't.
Aaron,
Yeah,
Aaron,
Yeah.
if I could ask a question, and I just want to make sure, and some of this is I don't even know the answer to this. So Justin, maybe you guys can help me. So the arcade, the what I'll call the underbelly there, that's the lighter
Mhm.
color at the top there. That is
Yeah.
what kind of material is that?
The underneath is a metal panel, basically,
Okay.
a
So
louvered metal panel. Mhm.
yeah, so one of the questions I guess I would have for the board is and Aaron is, is that a space, because if right now it's pretty dark under there, is that a space
Yeah.
that's obviously we're not touching the brick, we could at least paint that space. That's one question I have for you.
Yeah, actually, I think, Ms. Johnson, I don't, you're not covering up a historic material if it is a metal panel or metal paneling. Even though it wasn't painted before, Amy, do you see any issue? I don't see
No.
anything that cause, consternation on the board or stand in violation to, one of the policies. And I do understand. I think white is brilliant. It's certainly going to brighten up that space. So that would not be an issue, painting
No.
the ceiling of the arcade.
No, that's not an issue at all because you're
Okay.
literally just
Okay.
changing the color. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's that
Sure.
masonry, it's that brick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just because, and just if we don't, another alternative that was kind of thrown around, this afternoon among the board was just, understanding kind of what your construction schedule is. I feel like there still may be a solution out there, but we just may not come to that conclusion tonight. And, another thought was perhaps we just table that portion, but I didn't know what impact that would have on, your overall construction schedule. I would be hard pressed to believe that the board would come up with like a different material, let's say, because again, that's really, it's kind of what you're doing. In fact, in my opinion, it would be maybe even more egregious than painting the brick because you're covering up the masonry. So I don't think that would have an impact per se. I think it's really maybe having a little more discussion with the board, potentially tabling that, and or the board could just deny it altogether, or the board could potentially, because it is somewhat of a hardship, I think, to to try to match that brick. That would be a way to potentially just make that transition seamless from old brick into new infill. That's a possibility as well. So there's a number of ways that it could go. And what I'd like to do is give you as much opportunity, if the time would be allowed, for us to maybe still consider some other ideas with the board, and then perhaps somebody from the Alberni team come back and we could just discuss that last portion. That's a possibility if in fact it's just depending on what your construction schedule is and
Yeah.
how critical that is to moving this all forward.
Yeah, well, no, thank you, because I appreciate that, Justin. I think maybe you can give a little bit of a timetable here. You're making me pause here for a second because, and Justin, I'm thinking aloud here. I should be texting you guys on the side, but in all seriousness, Justin, I wonder if we paint that underside and we do the renovations we want on the front there, with the doors and windows, that kind of stuff, and see what it looks like and how it could possibly blend. And maybe it won't, and maybe we're going to get to a point where we say this is, and even the board takes a look at that and goes, wow, this does not work, because you weren't able to match it up. And so I'm wondering if part of this is let's get that underside done so we can at least see how that changes the storefront, and then make those changes and renovations on that exterior piece as we've talked about here. But the paint piece of it, let's see what it ends up looking like. And you guys know I'm the biggest advocate right now to wanting to make this storefront differentiated, but I also would rather not have a decision tonight if it's non-favorable, and I don't want to go down any other path at this point. So I'd rather almost see what we have. But Justin, I'll pause there, and then just any reactions you or Carson have to that.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Carson.
Yeah, I would say from a design standpoint, I think there's a lot of benefits to having the brick painted as the inset panels. So the soffit being painted, I think is going to make a world of difference to brightening that space and allowing light to react differently under there for pedestrians. So I think that's great. And that little diagram that we did on the lower left there, I think we can look at that and look at it a couple different ways, John. And if that's something that gets deferred for a decision later, we can look at what, is it a different color? Is it, is it, just the sill? Maybe the top stays and it's just the sill condition. We can mock that up digitally and defer that conversation.
Yeah, Carson, and you're, and again, maybe to the board, Aaron, and I have no idea. Now I'm going to say something I completely am way out of my lane here, but do they, forget the painting of brick. Do they, can you stain a brick so it's still, the brick is still a brick, but it maybe is a darker shade of a brick? Does that make sense?
They do make masonry stains.
Mhm.
Would the board be open to reviewing something like that? So it, again, almost like I'm thinking of a piece of wood. You could still see the grain, but it's just a different shade. It's not, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah. I do know what you're saying. I think that's a great idea. I'm not certain that we have precedence for that. Ms. Johnson, can you think of anything that any of our policies or standards would speak to that specifically? But I really think like that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking, okay, maybe that is the compromise where you're really not covering up brick. I mean, you can see brick that's painted, but you see more paint than you see brick. But yeah.
Right.
But if there is a stain that allows the integrity of the brick to be more visible, but still gives you some differentiation in color, that may also, and that, again, that could be something that if it's not, if it's not detrimental to your schedule, maybe that's something that the board could take back, discuss, do a little more research on, and perhaps, Amy could feed back to you guys that the board be favorable or not, whatever the conclusion may be. I like that idea. Amy, can you think of anything that would either support or refute perhaps a stained brick?
No, I can't think of the board ever reviewing such an application, but it's definitely an interesting concept. And you're talking about just staining the infilled piece to see if we can match it to the existing brick. Is that what you're proposing?
Well, I guess what I'm again suggesting is I just think of like I have a wooden deck at home. And I don't like a painted deck. Like I don't like my deck out back painted. So I went and found it's a see-through cedar stain, and it looks it's still the authentic wood. The grain comes through, the knots are there, but it's just got a different tint to it. So I guess I'm suggesting is there to not lose the integrity of seeing the actual brick, the pores, that are in it, but it's actually just a darker stain. It would accomplish two things. It would, one, give us a little bit of differentiation, but it would still, maintain the integrity of the brick and the original intent of the 1980 building. So it would accomplish something we would like. It would accomplish something that I think the HARB is asking for. And I also think, and again, my one reason for saying this and pushing this a little bit is just that I am certain for us to try to match up, 1980 brick and the stucco and everything else, it's going to be real hard to do that on a storefront. If this was on the back of the building or on the other side of the building, I probably wouldn't feel as strong. On the front of this building where we're going to invite people under the canopy there, the arcade, it's going to be visible. It's going to be obvious. So that's what I worry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it would be staining the surfaces that they're proposing for painting right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Essentially.
Okay.
So it's just as an example, you can see that taking typical bricks, applying something. So it's not it impregnates the body of the brick rather than coating it in a way that could be detrimental to the quality of the brick. So the original texture and quality comes through. You're not actually infilling any of the pores. You can then actually change the color of the brick. A lot of times this is used for matching infills. But
Yeah.
I think it could serve, if you all were okay with it, the potential of taking a brick, which oddly this is similar to our existing brick, and bringing the color to a new range while keeping the
Yeah.
integrity of the original texture.
And I will add that the pictures don't really do this brick justice as far as trying to stain to match the existing. I don't think that'll be a possibility. There is almost a blue fleck in the brick, which you can't even see in the photos, but there's a lot of variation within the brick itself that to stain to try to match it. I don't think that would be
I don't know how we're
a
gonna do it.
suggestion. Yeah.
That's my concern is I just don't know. And again, if Aaron, if it's better for us to say, let's hit the pause button on this piece, and I'm going back to Justin and Carson, let's get the soffit painted, let's get those windows out, let's do what we have to do, let's see it. But I think, even if we did a field trip and we saw it, I'm pretty sure what Carson just said is absolutely spot on. I don't know how you'd match that. I don't know how we would ever match that brick. I think it's going to just be very obvious that we did a renovation there, and that's just. So anyway, that is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
I
wonder,
agree. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I know that I hear the board kind of struggling with the fact that they would be the sense that you would be directly contradicting a principle that you're tasked with guarding, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to at least ask the question, is there, for like, let's say, for example, that for this series of buildings, there was a really bad infill. It was done during, I'm going to suggest our building is kind of a poor architectural infill within a much more detailed, more nuanced, architectural context here. Whereby, like, if we were an infill building between this building and that building, and the attempt was to make it more like its context, is there principles within, the guidelines that you're trying to support, through this board that would speak to that? Because I think that there's a both and to our efforts here. I think we could have done something more subtle there. We could have applied over it, but we looked at our context and said, well, there's a precedent for distinguishing the commercial base from the upper floors, which were either tenant occupied private spaces. Can we take that same precedent that is on both, the two corners surrounding us and utilize that same precedent? So I'm curious if there's obviously if we didn't have that precedent next to us, there would be nothing to reference. There would be no reason to make a case for that. If we were 3 blocks away from it, that would really be referencing irrelevant architecture to its context.
Yeah.
In this case, we felt like there was a very close contextual relationship to our adjacent buildings.
Yeah.
So that was just a question I wanted to raise, if that was a relevant point.
Yeah. It is. It's a great question, and we often sometimes struggle with the condition of buildings. Oftentimes, it's buildings that have been so altered over time, and there may be a situation where we could bring back or restore or replace to maybe original conditions, say like a window or a cornice or something like that. We would often look to the neighborhood to kind of give us a cue, so to speak, as to what may have existed, particularly if Amy doesn't have documentation or photos, old photos that would provide evidence of what maybe a feature that used to exist. Yeah. And but the context in the neighborhood is really important. I think though, and Amy, I'm kind of just thinking off the top of my head, I'm not even sure that this is right. So stop me or correct me, or if you have something to add. Okay, I think oftentimes I think of it relative to replacing a feature that may be missing as opposed to adding something that was never there when we consider context. But I do, again, I do appreciate what that first floor, especially something that's recessed under, behind, it's dark. it, you want to like hearken in the user or the student or whomever that may be. You've got this really fantastic canopy that's, that's like introducing the space. And visually, I think all of us can respond in a positive way to what that looks like. But again, just kind of stuck on that idea of like adding paint or maybe even stain. We'll have to see, I think, as a board to discuss that. But that's how I see context in a neighborhood. But Amy or anyone else on the board, add, refute, challenge what I just said. That's just how I view it.
No, I wholly agree with what you just said, and
Okay.
visually, what's being proposed in the mock-up it looks appropriate. It's just the
Yeah.
board cannot set a precedent unless it has a really exceptionally good reason, and that's why I was thinking possibly just the knee wall could be painted or stained. But
Uh-huh.
unless it has a really good reason, because we've turned so many people down that have wanted to paint. We've had people remove paint from stone facades that have just painted them.
Yeah.
So it's really would set a bad precedent. And of course, this is a more modern building, and I don't feel that it's inappropriate what is being proposed, but it's
Right.
just the aspect of the precedent.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I do like the idea of if it doesn't conflict with schedules, potentially just like tabling that portion of the proposal for the board to do some additional research. I think the stain is a very interesting idea because we're kind of laboring over this. It would be important for us to see physical samples of what you would propose in the stain. I guess, acquire some brick that you would use. The best match possible, and then stain some samples so that the board could review those as a possible option. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. We've never entertained it, but I certainly wouldn't say that it's off the table at all. And those are kind of creative sort of alternatives that I just wanted to allow the board a little bit more time to explore. And if you say, look, we need a decision by the January meeting. Then that would be something that, we work best with the deadline. So if there is something that we need to make a decision, make a motion by that time, make sure that's clear to us.
Yeah, Justin, when would we have to have an answer to this? And when could we maybe do that staining kind of sampling?
Oh,
What
absolutely.
would it take?
Yeah, I think we have some flexibility on the timeline wise for this, and I think we can move as quickly. I think there's no reason to let it languish, but I think taking the time to talk about it together, we can certainly pull together some stain samples of at least a brick that is in the same general color range and texture,
Right.
And attempt to at least continue the conversation on this. We certainly appreciate you giving us that, opportunity and being willing to continue to discuss it. Because as you can see, it's a small thing, but as a team, it is something that we actually believe in. So we'd love to find a way that everybody could agree it makes sense. If not, at least we'll have tried. And we really appreciate you guys being patient with us and being willing to continue to talk. So thank you.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
And Aaron said earlier too, like if our hands are tied and we have to deny it, you can always go to city council, to see what they say,
Yep.
No, and again, thank you, because we appreciate that. Obviously, we want to be good partners with everyone, and you all have been terrific with us. So again, the stain, again, maybe that's my good idea for the week. So we'll see. You always get one, right?
Well, and
The Florida idea was the best idea, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, flying to Florida.
Yes. And as you may be able to tell, I'm actually walking through the airport now, so we're good.
Oh no! Oh, we have gone on for a while. Okay. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice it was on.
No,
Okay.
we're doing good. We're doing good. This is all good.
All right.
But I'm so appreciative. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I think that the board believes in what you're trying to accomplish. It's just the execution and the materials, to get to that point. And I think maybe another month for the board to discuss and banter around some ideas, maybe just what it needs. So,
Awesome.
okay, all right, super.
Awesome.
All right, great.
Thank you. I
Okay,
just
well-
want to say thank you for explaining the differences in the floor levels and explaining better
Yeah.
why reason for doing this, because that wasn't explained earlier. So that's good.
Yeah, it's really quite different when you draw that level line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I think, is there anything else that we need to review on the building that we didn't do in an hour and a half? You take more time, but John's gonna be going into his flight.
I think we covered the whole building.
Okay, super, okay.
No, we're great. We're great.
Plus a few others, right? Okay, all right. So what I think I'll do is I'm gonna open the board to make a motion, and I think what we'll find is that the majority is fine. So whomever wants to make a motion, like I suggested earlier, you can move to really approve what's proposed and then create any exceptions that you have. And then if whomever's making the motion is agreeable to tabling the portion about painting the first floor Penn Street side, storefront area, then that's something we could table for further discussion and then review at either the next meeting or a future meeting. And then the only other thing that I would say, I think the other thing was just make sure that you include something relative to the location of the Embracing Bears statue, that needs to be retained, but we can determine another date what the exact location of that is, just a small detail there.
Mhm.
So either Nigel or Rick, if somebody wants to take a stab.
I've been taking notes here, so,
Oh, great. I'm so excited.
Do it from memory myself, so that's good.
I am going to make a motion to issue the COA for 401 Penn Street
Okay,
with,
perfect.
no, bear with me here, and we might need to fix this a little bit.
No
So
problem.
I'm gonna say we go with everything, along with the sculptures being placed in a new location. We're gonna discuss that later, or I guess we gave it up to Alvernia to discuss that with
Proposed location. Okay.
a new location, maybe through Berks Arts Council. They can contact them at the Goggle Works or something like that. They're gonna paint the metal panels on the underside, correct?
Yep.
Of is it the roof? I
The
was trying to-
ceiling.
The ceiling.
Ceiling of the first floor. Yep, of the arcade. Yep.
Then we're going to table the section about painting the brick and come back at a later time to discuss that after the board has some time to possibly review staining and
Yep.
things like that.
Yep.
don't know.
Okay.
That Amy?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
You
I
wanna
think that covers it.
The approval of everything, including the retention and relocation of the sculpture, to be discussed at a later date, and the tabling of the painting of the brick facade at the commercial storefronts, to be reviewed at a later date.
Mhm.
I'll add more detail, of course.
Yeah. Okay, all
I'll
right,
add-
and Mr. Politica,
I'll second that. Yes, I'll second that.
okay, great, super, okay, all right. Let me jot this down. Okay, as a formality, I have to ask you for your vote. Okay, so, Mr. Politica,
Yes.
that's a yes, okay, and Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So the HARB approves, just like we said, really, the entire scope of work, and then we'll come back if certainly keep the dialogue open with Amy, because she keeps the dialogue open with us. And as we have thoughts and you have thoughts, and if you want to execute on any samples for us to review, at a meeting, once we kind of get to that point, that would be, I think that would be perfect. And hopefully we can find compromise that would satisfy what you're looking for and still satisfy what the board's standards and policies that we use to guide our decisions.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you
That's
all
great.
so much. Yep. Terrific
Thank
news.
Thank
you.
you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Have a safe flight, John.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
All right,
Anthony.
take
We
care.
appreciate it. Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our next application, which is okay, I just got to bring it up. 513 Holy Street.
Yes.
Okay. All right. 513 Holy Street. So if you want to go ahead and read the summary, and then we can discuss. We do not have an applicant with us tonight. Is that correct?
We do not. Nope, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay. This 3-story semi-detached home received a site quality rating of 72 and is a contributing site in the Center Park Historic District. Built in the Queen Anne style, the property features a painted brick facade at the first floor southern facade and the eastern facade, and the original porch structure that includes turned wood columns and an East Lake style wood balustrade. The structure has been compromised with the application of aluminum siding and capping at the second floor front facade and the application of wood shake shingles at the 2-story projection on the eastern facade. And tonight we are reviewing the proposal for the application of CertainTeed Cedar Impressions polymer shingle in the color spruce at the 2-story projection at the eastern facade. And the work has been completed and is in violation as it did not go through the HARB process or receive a building permit. And the Secretary of the Interior standards that apply to this project are 2, 5, and 6, of which I read previously.
Okay, super. Thank you. I'm just trying to pull up the photos here, so just give me a moment. Okay.
I apologize.
I got
I failed to list on the agenda that it was in violation, but I know you gathered that through the information.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, just give me a minute here. I got off easy tonight. I didn't actually have to share my screen on anything. That wasn't
Yeah.
totally planned on the Alvernia thing, but just seemed to kind of go that direction. So
Yeah.
give me a moment here. I'm
I'll
like
take-
out of practice.
How long
All
has
right.
been going on with this property?
What is going on?
How long has this been going on?
Oh, sorry. She had the owner had initially come to me in February but she had came to me after the February deadline. So she was scheduled to go before the board and have this reviewed at the March meeting, of which was canceled, of course, because of COVID. And then in April, she was rescheduled to attend that meeting. And before the meeting is when I found the work being undertaken and being done. So this has been going on basically since February, but the work was done in April. And the reason why this has gone on so long is just factually, she did not want to attend a virtual meeting. So we didn't know how long we would be doing our meetings through the Zoom application. So we just kind of held off. And then through the timeline that I provided you, the board and the city required that I send a violation letter, and then we've been going through the violation process.
Yeah, it's been messy to say the least. Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of like set some context, it was I mean, yes, it's in violation. Yes, it's gone through the district, like the magistrate court, and there's really, we really have to look at it, as difficult as it may be. We have to look at it as objectively as we can. There's really not a per se mechanism for us to like not approve an application if we feel as though that if we agree that the work is still appropriate, there's precedence for it, or it is within keeping of a standard or a policy or something like that. She's been through the violation process. Obviously, we want to get this resolved, and whatever we end up with our conclusion to be, it is. But just because we've been through all of that with her, and she tore up a stop work order and did all sorts of things that individuals shouldn't be doing. Nevertheless, it's still a violation, and we still just have to look at what work's been done to the property. Is it appropriate? Are there other factors that we have to consider, such as financial hardship? I'm not so sure that that's applicable, and I can explain that to you guys in a little bit. So I just want to focus in on not necessarily the behavior of the applicant, as difficult as it is to overlook that, but really just look at the work that's been done and, identify, is it appropriate? Is there precedence for it? And then eventually what decision does the board, what conclusion motion does the board want to come to? So, so just to explain a financial hardship, this is a newish kind of policy, a newish as in like a couple of years. And I think maybe, Amy, we've, maybe less than a dozen applications, maybe over the last, 2 to 3 years that we've done. So it's still something that we're exploring. And it's it's an extensive application, very detailed. But as we were looking at, it's important to understand, like, okay, is the material original? That was there, that she's replacing now with a composite, basically a composite shingle. And, when we look at what the condition of the property was at the time, you can see that it's cedar, or not, I'm saying cedar, it's wood shake. And even though we don't have photos documenting what the original material to be, I believe Amy is concluding that it was probably some sort of like a lap siding,
like
a wood siding of some sort, wood siding.
Oh my gosh, I just lost the term, but like a shingle style Victorian, where you'd have like clapboard that's facing different directions or put in different directions on. As there's a few examples in the district, and it's a Victorian.
Right. Style. Yep. Now it's interesting because the other bump out on the other side is really lovely. And I think it's I don't know if it's brick or I can't remember what it is exactly. Is it brick? Okay, I'm not sure.
The one, yeah.
This packet, yeah, so that's brick. Yeah, but the conclusion is this was not ever brick. This definitely had some sort of siding material, over it. And this definitely, although we can't document, it definitely looks like perhaps something that was done in, the 1970s or something. That was a common material that was used. So there is precedent. So as it relates to like the financial hardship policy, we generally look at it relative, although not exclusively, but what we've learned so far is, we're looking at relative to like materials, let's say an original material, and then doing a financial hardship application and analysis as to whether or not the property itself would, based on income and things like that, whether it would qualify for financial hardship, and the board would approve a substitute material. And that is like the loss of like an original or conforming material versus something like this that's non-conforming. Even though we may not know what it is, I think we're all of the agreement. At least I don't mean to speak for everybody, but hopefully everyone's of the agreement. This is not an original material. So that does in some ways change the way perhaps a financial hardship application would be viewed, and whether or not it really is even applicable here. Now, Amy and I were talking this afternoon because this one has just really kind of left us kind of perplexed about how to move it forward. And there have been some examples of where the board has approved replacing like a non-conforming material with another material. If we really looked at like the cost of cedar shakes, which is what the applicant did receive a quote from her contractor on that. I mean, it is twice the price, but financial hardship, I think the spirit of financial hardship is not to replace it with the same non-conforming material. So that it may negate the financial hardship policy, and perhaps we look at this as, okay, we've gone from one conforming material to another. Is there precedence, or is there some context for us to approve a substitute material when it's being replaced with a material that's not original. I know that sounds like I talked in circles. Amy, can you add anything to that, or does that sound about right?
No, that sounds perfect. What Aaron
Okay.
and I discussed was there, and I did not have time to research actual cases, but within my memory, there have been times where the board has approved the replacement of like an asbestos shingle that's been on the side of a building with a vinyl siding, because the asbestos shingle was already not original to the building, and then they
Right.
approved a vinyl siding or what have you. And of course, the board does or tries to work with the applicant to possibly get them to restore the siding, but because it's already there, and asbestos siding or asbestos shingles had been installed before the district became a district, it was warranted that they could have the board could approve the installation of another non-conforming material, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that gives us some precedence for this. So I just wanted to make sure that was as clear as mud before we, as we go into the discussion about this. So, so as you digest that, if Rick or Nigel, if you guys have, any questions about this or concerns about maybe, potentially moving in that direction, you let us know what you guys are thinking about this. It's a tricky one.
Yeah,
Like, for instance, on the front facade where they have aluminum siding, the board would not require that they remove the aluminum siding. But if the owner wanted to replace it with a vinyl siding, that would be, that has been approved. And there's precedent being approved. And most recently at the corner of 5th and Spring, there was aluminum siding in the front gable, and the board approved the installation of vinyl siding because this older aluminum siding is not a material that you can obtain anymore. So, it's the alternative is replacing it with a vinyl siding that matches in width, just to give an example.
Yeah. Right.
yeah, I looked at the work. I actually walked by the building the other day over the weekend and saw the work that was done. I had to look for a bit and was like, what are we actually looking at? Then I had to actually look at the application on my phone. I was like, oh, it's the side here. So
Yeah.
it is well done. I mean, obviously from what I'm looking at here, it looks better than I'm looking at right now. I mean, that's for sure. But again, if it would actually have been, well, slow up, because you're looking at this now, and the thing I'm looking at possibly, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say until you really would go over it with a fine-tooth comb with it. Since both buildings are brick structures from one side to the next, they could have been highly altered across the board where they put new windows in and widened the windows, because the windows on the right-hand side are very narrow and
Right.
a little bit more. These are definitely replacement windows on the left-hand side. So there might have been an extensive renovation to this, or mutilation, if you want to call it, for lack of a better term. So you've really got it quite well altered. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid. I didn't pay attention to it, but is the building on the right or the other half of the,
Yeah, if you go down,
how does that
Let's
look?
scroll down.
yep, keep scrolling. That is the other half.
Yeah, that's telling me right there that whole end was altered. They put two windows in on the side and they widened the windows on the flush spot looking at the other building, and the ones facing the street, they widened those. They really altered that, and I wouldn't be afraid to bet. I know that for a fact that was probably brick at one point in time. But they just really mutilated the side of that building.
Yeah,
So,
they could have removed the brick altogether and,
Yeah.
like you said, widen it.
That's true.
I would venture
Yeah.
to believe that is the case. So then that would be from what you're looking at in the from what that had looked like already. you're looking at something
Mhm.
that at this point in time was completely altered, because what you're looking at on the other building, when you go back to the original screen, that's kind of what it looked like, because
Yeah.
if you
Those
get
narrow windows.
the other one, on this one here, I mean, I don't know if you have any picture of, I'm sure that has just the big window in the side where they put 2 windows on in the side on each one of these. So this thing was really altered and just quite frankly, just butchered completely, when you get right down to it. That's all replacement windows. Nothing there is, absolutely nothing there is original.
Yeah, so does that,
And it looks like even
yeah,
that
does that,
was actually put in at the top there also as well. That window at the very top. I mean, this property has been
Yeah.
altered beyond belief at this point from what I'm looking at.
that little like shed dormer window?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see anything here, and I'm not sure if it was on the other side. Let me look. Yeah, so,
I have a picture
go
that
ahead.
showed from the applicant, like that side of the building does have a big, large window on the first floor, and I have a picture from the applicant. Yeah, you can see on the first floor, and if you want to put me on for a second, because I don't think any of my pictures I really looked at because I really looked at that brick addition or brick projection. But if you want to show me for a second, I can show you.
I'm trying to make you bigger. I don't know how. A little better. Okay. That's as good as I can go.
Okay. I can't tell. I can't see myself, so I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it okay. How about you guys? Maybe
Okay.
just not tilt it more forward to the camera so we get the shine off maybe not as close. Just pull it
Oh.
back a little bit, but hold it up straighter. Yeah, okay. All right, that's okay. Yep. So what are we seeing, Amy?
So just what Rick is saying to show the alteration in the brick part of the building next to it, you can see there's another big window. So
Yeah.
With the other
This-
side of the building is what
yeah,
you're
the
saying.
wood frame on 513, the window, I think it's 2 separate windows on the first floor there.
I see. Okay. Oh, I see. All right. There's a large window facing.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Great. Yeah.
I'm
Okay. So that is
gonna say we already
pretty
agreed-
altered.
I'm going to say we already agreed, like you said, at Fifth and Spring, which incidentally that work is still not done.
Right. It's not.
Incidentally, since we already agreed with that, and just for what the problems are that you had with this woman in the past, I mean, I don't know what's going on with her, because I'm hearing conflicting stories there as far as, she maybe something snapped there. I don't know, but yeah, that's not for me to discuss at this point. But the one thing I'm just going to say is what you're looking at has been highly altered already. It's not original by any stretch of the imagination. So we're not really replacing anything with like material. And the only thing that's going to be like material to replace on that addition at the end of the building is going to be brick when you get right down to it. That's the only like material you're going to be looking at. And that's not happening. So. So it's, I mean, the work that is done there doesn't look bad from street view. I mean, if you get up front, maybe, I don't know, it's another story, but from street view, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, it's like, quite frankly, I think, we just need to move on from this if that's the case, in my opinion.
Hey, Nigel, do you have any thoughts that contradict what we're saying or agree? What do
No,
you
I
think?
agree. I agree.
Yeah. It is a tough one because it's been a really challenging application. It's not the way we like to engage with applicants at all, but sometimes they control it. We don't. We can only respond at this point. But I would agree that it does look better, at least from a color perspective, it looks better. And there's precedence for allowing substitute material. I think Rick made a great point that that whole dormer or that whole bump out is highly altered, potentially even from the original material that could have been brick. Windows have been altered, and oftentimes that's also another compelling reason that I hadn't really considered as well. So if there isn't any more discussion and someone wants to make a motion, we do have to, obviously we're reviewing this and we want to make sure that we get a vote on this, and then we can close this up then and move on from this one.
I make a
So
motion.
if Rick or
The
go ahead.
materials that are there on the building currently at 513 Oley Street, as they are existing on the building today, and let's just move on.
Okay, all right. All right, so improve. Go ahead, Amy.
Do you mind if I just add, because it's very important that we have a reason in the resolution, but just to state that due to the fact that the projection on the building is highly altered and not original to the building.
I would agree with that, yes. So
Okay.
Okay, great, okay. Nigel, do you want to second that?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, all right, Mr. Politica.
yes,
Okay, and Ms. Walker.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you both for that, appreciate it. Okay, motion second, okay, great. All right, let me bring up let me just find the agenda, Amy, and we can just zip through the rest of the agenda.
you don't finish a lot of your drafts there, Aaron.
Say again?
I said, you don't finish a lot of your drafts in there, 79 drafts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you mustn't look at that. Yeah, I know. It's like a bad habit of mine. Nothing critical. I just need to delete them. But I start a lot of thoughts and don't finish them.
I go nuts when I see one. Oh, my enemy, yeah.
Oh, that's my dirty little secret. No one should see that. That's funny. We all have our thing. Okay, so so the applications at staff. Is there a motion to approve the applications at staff?
I make a motion to approve.
Wait.
Okay.
Amy, we talked
Yes.
about letter B.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be sending him a letter?
Yeah, I'll send him an email, but I can technically approve the paint color samples. And he did provide everything in writing, but I'm going to be sending him an email or a letter stating that, he has to get approval first, yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay. All right. And so, Nigel, are you willing to second that motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Did you have an aye there too, Rick? I assume.
Raise my hand too.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Okay. All right. Okay. And those opposed? None. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So, Amy, do you have any update on preservation officers' reports on action items?
I do not. I have not had time to work on any of these due to preparing for this meeting and having the holiday thrown in and just trying to finish things
Okay.
up before I go on vacation.
Sure. Okay. All right.
But I did
So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
I did pull the July meeting, which was the resolutions from the July 21st, 2020 meeting, which I was the next grouping of resolutions to review.
Okay.
And just going through them, the first two resolutions were for 951 North Fifth Street that we just discussed. And I know I've gone by there and the work hasn't commenced.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I don't know if Aaron, or Nigel can answer this, but he was to remove or have the store owner remove the bars from the window. That I
Yeah.
don't,
That's still on the exterior. They were supposed to be put on the interior at least, I think.
okay, they're still on, okay.
Yeah, they're still there.
I'll send him a reminder, but he promised that he would have the store owner do that. And then the next one is that I'm not sure of is 535 Penn Street, where the board had just approved a replacement of a Metro PCF
Yeah,
signage, and just because they were
Yep.
changing the name to Metro by T-Mobile. So that one I have to check out. I'm not sure if that actually was done. I would assume it was done, but I'm not absolutely certain. And then the next was 615 Minor Street, where the board approved the installation of a handicap ramp. And that the owner did send me pictures of, and they did do it according to what was approved by the board. And then that was it for July. So I'll just take, and rather than handing them out, I'll just take care of the
Okay.
one, go look at the one I'm not sure of.
okay. Yeah, I think because it's been July, it's been almost 6 months. I think that it would be good to give the property owner at the corner of Fifth and Spring a reminder.
There,
Yeah,
the contractor had emailed me. It's more of a situation where the contractor wants to make certain changes, but the owner doesn't. So the contractor keeps
Mhm.
contacting me and asking me if the changes are okay, but they're different than the changes that were approved by the review board. And my last contact with him was that, this would have to come I forget exactly what he was asking, but I said this change would have to come before the review board. So I don't know what's going on, why, work has stopped altogether, but I'll contact the owner.
Okay. Yeah, because I think you're just going to get a lot of yeses from him,
Yes.
which is
yeah.
what we got before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just tell him the entire board has been watching his property.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
In
put it
fact, it's hard not to. It's hard not to. It's right there.
right. Oh no, you see the light. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And then back to the violations. Nigel, you saw something egregious happening in the 1000 block of Fifth Street. Amy, do you know if the building inspectors are able to get out there and put a stop work order on that?
Yes, and I told, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you, but I told Nigel, yes,
Okay.
the building inspector, emailed me while he was out there and had the stop work order in hand. He usually is good
Great.
about taking photographs and stuff, so he hasn't emailed me anything, but he said he was putting a stop
Okay.
order on it.
Okay. And Nigel, what you saw was they were removing like columns and railings and balustrade, everything?
Everything was already taken down. A lot of stuff was
Wow.
in the front yard.
Okay.
Now,
It looked like they were ripping up the floor
Okay.
and replacing the floor. They had 2x4s holding the porch up.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So
and it could be they were restoring it. I have no idea until they talk to me, but they should not be
Yeah.
just doing that work without
No.
building permit, without, approval.
No.
right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. We want to make sure we stay on that one. Okay. All right. I know we talk about these and it really is just like a question of like trying to understand what the priorities are and not necessarily like, it would be great if it were like first in, first out type of thing. But I know sometimes there are some that are more egregious than others. And and I know the list doesn't get smaller, it just gets bigger. So I honestly don't have any like recommendations how to attack it because it's like one step forward and then you get like 10 more violations and there could be 10 more behind, all of that. And, I'm not really sure how to help like make some significant progress on that. Is there any possibility that there may be some additional help in the in your office for next year? With that, you don't have to get into specifics, but just getting some extra manpower.
there has been talk about it, but it has to be,
Okay.
understand, it
Like,
has to be
yeah.
approved by the union, and I don't
Mhm.
know if that's, I haven't been kept in the loop. I don't know if that's happened yet.
Okay, okay, all right. Okay. All right, okay, so there's no one here from policy committee. I don't have anything on outreach, education or outreach, and I guess, Amy, you're still looking for preservation commendations, if they're
And I
able to
just-
do anything. Okay,
I just,
good to keep it there.
I should have looked at, I pass it every day on my way in. There is a property. Oh gosh, I think it's in the 0 block, or it's probably the 100 block of South 9th Street, that a property owner that owns properties in the Prince District and has restored buildings on South 6th Street. He restored this building, and I'll take a picture of it, but I just thought of it the other day. He has done some really nice restoration work on the front of the building. Like, he restored the wood windows, and there are, like, it's an Italianate style building.
Mhm.
And take a picture, but that's something we can add. But yes, I'm looking for any and all recommendations.
What's the address to that-
Okay, all right.
what's the address to that building?
I can't remember. I think it's in the 100 block, and it's on the eastern side, but it's South 9th Street.
Okay,
It's beautiful. And it has the double wood doors. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know why I think of
Nice.
it here, but yeah, he had me inside. I mean, he altered the inside greatly, but I think it needed to be altered. But he totally preserved and restored the exterior, the front. It's kind of in with
Sounds nice.
there's buildings there that are, if you haven't looked at that block, there's some really neat details, like copper roofs and some old wrought iron gates to the properties. It's some
Well,
of it is muddled, but there's some really neat details on those buildings in the 0 block of South 9th Street and the 100 block.
the one that's at the top of Cherry Street, basically, that you see, that sticks out on Cherry Street, looking up, that one always sticks out to me all the time.
Yes. I think it's within that block, if I'm not mistaken, but
I have
and
to
it's painted like a green color. You can't miss it. It's beautiful.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Sounds nice. Well, that's great. Okay. All right. So if there's nothing else, then is there a motion to adjourn?
I have something real quick. It'll
Oh,
take 2
sure.
seconds.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No problem.
Amy, Mike Louder had asked me to mention to you, and I thought I'd just bring it up while we're having our meeting. He knows that a lot of people are being sent to the Artifacts Bank by you because of,
Okay.
that's where you send them, because
Yeah.
they need doors, windows, whatever. He just wants me to let you know to somehow reiterate to the applicants that Center Park Historic District Artifacts Bank employees have no say over what is appropriate, because
Okay.
they come to the Artifacts Bank and they'll ask, well, what do you think of this? Well, what do you think of that? And Mike can't tell them that, and neither can any of the workers. They can't tell them that either. So somehow reiterate to them that any of the workers there cannot, say one way or another what the HARB would approve. And also, we aren't bilingual. So
Right.
you can tell them that we don't have anybody that speaks Spanish there, because I guess Mike's been running into that problem too.
Okay.
If they
No.
just tell them to bring a translator or something.
Okay. No, I didn't know that was an issue, that they were asking their opinion, but certainly, yeah, I'll tell them that the board has to, I tell them that, they can set aside the door or reserve the door because, you have to wait until the board can review it, of course, but no, I will definitely tell them those 2 things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, now
great.
somebody make a motion. I'll second that.
Okay. Oh, Rick, you made the motion?
I did.
Okay, sorry, I just missed that. All right, great. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and opposed? No? Okay. All right. Hey, guys, thanks for finishing out your first year on the board, and just appreciate you being like faithful to all the meetings. And I mean, you're definitely like serving in the most like challenging times. I'm not saying it's way easier, but it's smoother, and you just get a different level of engagement when we meet together, and hopefully that's on the horizon. I hope so. But I wanted to thank you both for coming to the meetings and really participating, especially in tonight's meeting. And I think that's really great, and appreciate that. And hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Same to you, Amy, if we don't talk, and hope everybody enjoys their holidays and stay safe. I think John and I are going to do takeout. There's nothing like prime rib on styrofoam, you know?
Well, Erin, I wanted to thank you too for being such a good leader and helping us
Oh, thank you.
hard times. And, you know, the board is not very big, so we don't get a lot of different opinions on things. And so you kind of help
Right.
us with leading us in directions and giving us examples and making us feel very comfortable.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Amy.
So thanks for having me along.
Yes, yes, no,
Yep.
thank you all for your dedication and for being willing to serve on the board. It's very important work that you all do, and I appreciate all the help you give me throughout the year as well. I really appreciate it.
Help me. I'd like to get a hold of some of those old Christmas decorations that are in the comfort station down underneath Penn Street and get them donated to this history center. So
I did watch yours and Michelle's program. I did see that.
yeah, how about that, huh? Yeah, I would like to get some of those so we can actually get at least get a good sample of one of them, or at least, you know, like the Santa Claus or something like that, that we could light it up at the museum and
Yes, yes.
back to life. Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
Let
I'm sure
me,
there got to be at least one or two nice ones in there, because from that program, like I said, those candles that are laying down there with the garland, the green garland, that's, you know, they were up on the lights in the one.
yes, no, that was
So,
an excellent picture that you had showing that. Yeah, yeah, no, those are the decorations.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did my first virtual program on Saturday, and I was a little nervous about it because talking to a computer with nobody else around for an hour is like a little daunting at times, you know. But I just kept focusing on the fact that there were like 70 participants in it, so I had a good crowd. So it went really, really well. So yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback out of it. So, you know.
Yes.
Well. So if you can help me get some of those, get some city workers down there to retract a couple of those things, so I can see what something good salvageable out of it. That would be great. You know. So.
Sure. No, I'll see if I can find some Christmas elves.
There we go. Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, sure. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, good night.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.